Hi, Mario. Hmm,
Abe, can you hear me?
I hear you.
But
Uh,
Mario can't.
that's what I see. Hmm,
Uh,
Can you guys hear me now?
yes.
yeah. Well, yeah.
Oh, so maybe something with my hearing aid. Okay.
We can hear you. We can't see you. Now we can see.
We can
Okay,
see him.
we're on Nun Beis 52. Rav Ashi, Shtei Takonas Havi. Regarding the Me'ila, Me'ila is a Avera when you benefit from Hegdish. And we learned that there was no, after they burnt the paraduma, the ashes of the paraduma that was mixed with water, which was sprinkled on people that were Tomei, that you were not Chayv Me'ila if you benefited from those ashes. So initially, the Raisa ba Moalim Be'efar, the Raisa ba Moalim Be'efar ein Moalim. In the body of the paraduma itself, there was Me'ila, but not in its ashes. Given the Chazar to come Zalzal, okay, they said there's no Me'ila in the ashes. People started using the ashes for medicinal purpose. Ka'avdi minela makasan. Ashes were used to treat wounds. So Gazu Me'ila. So the Rabbanan made a rabbinic Isser to that there is a prohibition of Mila. Given the Chazar the Koparshim is Suffolk Hazos. So people held back on using Paraduma when it was a suffix, whether you needed it. So they went back and Ukma Deraisa and said that there is no meal at all. So it was a two-part Gzeira. Torah Parliament of Shul when the Bezdin makes a mistake and Paskins a Shaila and they have to bring the Paralim Dover. B'tchila Magbin Lei, we make a collection from the seaboard to pay for it. The Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Shimon Orim Mitrumas Alishkein, but it comes from the general treasury when everyone donated the Machzis Hashekel, it came from seaboard funds. For Mavatanya Ipcha, we have a price that says the opposite. So the Gemara says, Heminay Achrisa. Usually, the later Baraisa was more authoritative. So we want to know which of these Baraisas were later. So Amrua Rabbana Kamed Ravashi, Lema Kamaisach Rita. That the one that the halacha that when Rav Shimon said he came out of the Truma Salishka, that was the later one. The Shaminan Leila Rab Shimon the Chaysh Lipshia. He's in generally worried about people being negligent. So he wouldn't have invoked collecting a new collection every time because people will be negligent and be pushed and not do it. So Ravashi, even if the Baraisa that was later, which is the one that when Rav Shimon said that you made a new collection, that also could work. Because Ki Chaysh Rav Shimon Lipshia, what is Rav Shimon concerned that people might be negligent when there is no kapara for it? But when there's an easy way to obtain atonement. So when the Tzibur brings the Parliament of Shul Tzibur, everybody gets kapara. So there he's not concerned so much about Pshia. Maya Vialo, what's the halacha? Other Abzutil Ravashi Toshma, the Tanya. As Korbani Lachmi Li Shai, Reachni Chochi Tishmru Lakriv Li B'Moado. This comes to include the Rabbi's Parliament of Shul Tzibur, who serve the Kochavim Shaboy Metrumas Alishka. So, Mina Pasuk, we learn that these korbanos are paid for from the communal fund, the Rabbi Shimon. So we see that was obviously the opinion of Rabbi Shimon, like we learned in the Brisa. Then we learned in the Mishnah that if the Kohen Gadol died after offering half of the Minchas Chavitin in the morning, and there's no Kohen Gadol yet that's been appointed, so a Minchas Chavitin is brought in the afternoon, but it's a whole Minchas Chavitin, and it's offered whole. Or do we say Dilma Shlema Shachris Ubetela bin Arbai? That which we said, it means boy Rabbi Yochanan. I'm sorry, Amrav Chia Barava, boy Rabbi Yochanan. Shlema Shachris Ushlema bin Arbaim. When there's no Kohen Gadol, they bring a Sholim 1 in the morning and Sholim in the afternoon. Or Dilma Shlema Shachris, and then they divided it, and then he died, and there was no, or we're talking about the next morning when there was no Kohen Gadol, they bring a whole 1 in the morning, and there's none in Ben Arbai. Amrav Rava Toshma. In the Mishnah, it describes 13 Kohanim that were used to bring up the various parts of the daily Olas Atomi. And in the Mishnah said, Shmini b'chavitin. The 8th guy brought up the Minchas Chavitin. V'misa de b'tela bin Arbayim. If they didn't bring it at all, Hazin de lo mishkach lishmi b'chavitin. There would be no 8. Hey chidami, the Meis Kohen Gadol v'laminu achar tachtav. In the case where the Kohen Gadol died and they haven't appointed a new Kohen Gadol, it seems when the Mishnah mentions the 8th Kohen brings up the Minchas Chavitin, means in every case, which seems to imply the answer to our Shaila, that the Mincha was brought morning and afternoon, particularly when the new Kohen Gadol was dying. It was a whole Yisroel. That seems to be a good proof. However, Amur Rabbeinu Kamed Rav Yirmiyah, Omar Babloi Tapshoi, these foolish Babylonians, Mishum Diasru Ba'asru Dechashicha, Amishmaitz Nechashcha, they live in the dark land. They're saying a Torah that doesn't have any light. Because it says also Shvi and Shi. The 7th one brings flour. The 9th one brings wine. Ela de Tani Shvi Besodas Shi B'yayin Achanami Lobatli. So you're going to tell me that was never abolished? It's not so. It says Minchasav Niskei and Balayla, that if you didn't bring the flour and the wine in the daytime, you could bring it at night. And Minchasav Niskei Afil Lamach, which meant there were days where it wasn't brought at all. So the 7th and the 9th. So just because the Mishnah lists what should happen on a daily basis doesn't mean it always happens. Eladi Loktani. The Tanah doesn't list things that might happen. Here as well, you can't prove from the fact that it says the 8th always bring the Chavit, and sometimes it's not brought. However, Adur Kamei de Rava, when they told Rava this, Omar, mi bishusanami kamayu. They had told the Rabbanim in Eretz Yisrael what we had said, but not from the best of our arguments. Maybe Shusan Amru, but Metivusan Lomri Kamayu. Our good arguments, they didn't say over. That's why they think we're stupid. The Hadar Rava. And Rava gives a better response. Hani Nami Tivusani. This is a good Amakra. Soiles min chatamid. Harei lecha keminchas tmidim. Just like the tamid, you have to bring it no matter what. So too, the minchas chavitin you have to bring no matter what. And therefore, a holy sorrow is brought both in the morning and in the afternoon. My aviala is we paskin like Rava. Amar Nachbar Yitzchak Toshma, the Tanya Shlema Shachris Shlema Ben Arbai. It says beferish. They brought a holy sorrow in the morning and in the afternoon. Okay. Now, many menachos, as you know, had lavona, the spice. So Amar Rav Yochanan, Pligiba Abi Yosef ben Dustoy Rabbona, Machloikas. Abi Yosef ben Dustoy Omer mafrish lo shnei kmotzim shel avoina. The Kohen Gadol separated 2 kmitzas of spice. Koimetz shachris for koimetz ben arbayim. One koimetz of avoina was offered with the minchas chavitin in the morning, which was usually half of the chavitin, and another kmitz of lavona was offered in the afternoon. Rabbanan amrik mafresh lo koimetz echad. Just like with the flour, they did one isron and they divided it. The lavona also, they were mafresh only one koimetz. And chatzi koimetz shachris, they divided the lavona half in the morning, v'achatzi koimetz ben arbayim. So that's the sheet of the Rabbanan versus Abba Yossi ben Destoy. But my kamifli, what's their nekuda of their machlokes? Abba Yossi ben Destoy ksovar lo ashkechan chatzi kometz to korev. We never see half of a kometz. It's always a full kmitza. Rabbanan sovi lo ashkechan yisron the boy shnei kmotzim. Listen, you're only bringing one isaron of flour. We never see 2 kmitzas for one isaron. Boy Rav Yochanan, Kohen Gadol Shemeis, back to the Kohen Gadol who died. V'lomino achar tachta. And there's a vacancy, there's no Kohen Gadol. L'Rabbanan uchpulu l'vanoisai. They hold that normally a half of a yisron of flour was brought in the morning with a half a koimetz of lavona, and the same thing in the afternoon. Now, we've now learned today that when there's no Kohen Gadol, they bring a holy saron in the morning and a holy saron in the afternoon. So do the Rabbanan agree that you bring a full kmitz of lavona in the morning and a full kmitz in the afternoon? Or maybe not. Just like the amount of flour was doubled, maybe we have to double the spice. What the Torah told us to do, it did. It talked about the flour had to be doubled, but it didn't say anything about the lavona. Vishemen, regarding the oil, bein laba yosi ben destroven rabbona mau. Do you double the amount of oil when you double the amount of flour or not? Amar Rav Torshma. In Menachos, later on, it talks about chamisha kmotzine. There are 5 instances where we do a kmitza. Now, there it does not mention this lavona of the Kohen's Gadol chavitin, because that Mishnah mentions only a full kmitza, not a half kmitza. V'imisa. Now, if according to the Rabbanan you bring a full kmitza of lavona, zimnin de mishkachas lo shiva, then you'd have another 2. 1 kmitza in the morning, 1 kmitza in the afternoon. Shouldn't be 5, should be 7. So the Gemara says, Di'i loktani, cases of if possible, the Kohen Gadol dies, the Mishnah doesn't mention, the Mishnah is mentioning only the standard cases. However, Yosef Rav Papa Karmelai Shmaitza. Rav Papa was learning the sugya. Amalei Rav Yosef Bar Shmael Rav Papa. V'hamala komitz b'chutz tihave uktani. One of the cases of the 5 kmitzas was a case where it's discussed if somebody offers up a kmitza outside of the Azara. That's also a case of di'i, that it's a if. It doesn't happen lechatchila. So they should have mentioned 7 because it's also an if. So my havi Allah, how do we paskin? Amar Bar Yitzchak Torshma, the Tanya. Kohen Gadol shemeis v'lo minu achar tachta. Kohen Gadol dies. What do we do? So we know, buy the flour, shleim shachus, shleim ben arbayim. You bring a complete Yisrael in the morning and in the afternoon. Here comes the kicker. Umafrish lo shnei kmatzim. Koimet shachmis for koimet ben arbayim. So you see that even the Rabbanon, we'll see who in a minute, who that is. According to this Baraisa, you bring a full koimetz of lavon in the morning, full koimetz in the afternoon. Umafrish lo shloisha slugin. You use 3 lug oil. Lugu mechza shachris, lugu mechza ben arbai. Now, Mani, who is the author of this? Ilem Rabbanon. So the Rabbanon are doubling the Levona, but they're not doubling the Shemen. Why did the Brisa double the amount of Levona, but not the amount of Shemen? It must be the sheet of Abi Yossi. He said every day that you brought a full koimitz in the morning and the afternoon. And neither were double. The Levona wasn't double and the oil wasn't double. So the Rabbanon perhaps go along with that. So Rav Yochanan halacha Rabbi Yosef ben Dustoy. So the Kohen Gadol every day brought a whole kmitz of Levona with the morning and a whole kmitz in the afternoon. And that's how we paskin. Umi Amar Rav Yochanan hachi. Could Rav Yochanan say such a thing? Vam Rav Yochanan halacha kistam Mishnah. There's a general rule that we follow an anonymous Mishnah, which is Rav Meir. Utnan chamisha kmotzenheim. It doesn't list this extra kmitz of the chavitin. So the Mishnah seems to follow the Rabbanan, not Abi Yossi, because the Rabbanan you only bring a half a kmitza, and the half kmitzas were not listed in the Mishnah on Kuvav about the 5 kmotzim. So Amoiroi Ninav Alibid Rav Yochanan. There's a machloikas Amirim what Rav Yochanan said. The halacha, the Amoira that said that Rabbi Yochanan always passes like a Stam Mishnah argues with the Amoira that says that halacha Rabbi Yosef ben Dustoy. Har lachatcheles, har lachatcheles, har lachatcheles. Per Chamishi, Kol HaMenachos. Kol HaMenachos Bos Matzah. Right? Mincha is a flour. So was it chametz or was it matzah? So Al-Menachos were matzah when you bake them. Chutz mechametz shebetoidu shtei lechem. So when you brought the Korban Torah, you had to bring 40 loaves. And it was 4 different types of preparation, 10 loaves of each. 30 of the loaves were matzah, 10 of the loaves were chametz. That's by the Toda. By the Shvuas, Shtei Alechem, the whole thing was matzah, was chametz. Shehein boz chametz. Now, they used to use saor, which is like sourdough, which they added to the dough to cause it to become chametz. Now, if you bring extra dough from somewhere else, you can't. It's going to passel the mincha because you have to have a specific volume. So Meir Oimer saor boide lemi toichan. You take some dough from the mincha itself and you leaven it. You put water in it, and over time, the bacteria causes it to ferment. So you didn't bring it from outside, you brought it from the mincha itself. And then you put it back in to cause the remaining dough to become chametz. He says that's not good because it's not that method would cause the leavening to be weaker. So Rabbi Yehuda doesn't feel it's the best way of doing it. So he says, or he brings some powerful sourdough from his own. The noslon sochamida. They had these measuring vessels. You put the dough in that measuring vessel. Umamale samida. And then you fill up, you have the piece of sourdough in there, and then you fill up the flour, and then you have no problem with the bringing in and changing the total volume. Amru lo, the Chachamim argued with Rabbi Yehuda. It causes it to either have less than you're supposed to have of flour or more, because the sourdough is taking up some of the volume of the flour, so the measurement will be abnormal. Boimene Rav Fredim Ravami. Minay l'cholam nochi shein bos matzah. Where do you get this rule that menachos have to be matzah, not chametz? Minolon t'chsiv ba. It's written it. Ksiv ba. And the lo ksiv ba. There's things written and there's things not written. Ksiv ba zos Toras HaMincha, and it'll end up saying Aaron of matzah is toichel. So there's going to be a pasuk to say there has to be matzahs. Okay. Tomorrow we'll learn at 3:00. Now, so housekeeping. The clock, we're moving the clock forward, Motzei Shabbos. So starting, we'll still learn Friday, but we'll probably be able to learn like at 5:00, something like that. We'll see exactly when Shabbos starts. We'll talk about it next week. And then we'll go back to learning on Shabbos in the shul. And then we'll go back to learning the Navi Shir Sunday night instead of Motzei Shabbos, because it's going to be very late, everything. So that's, just keep that in mind. Things are, this week it's the same, 3:00 tomorrow, and we'll do the Daf Motzei Shabbos, 7:15, and then the Navi Shir. We'll start pasuk by pasuk, Sefer Ezra. Harold, did you see we sent there was you were there to the introduction. Yeah,
I was there. Yeah.
Okay. Are Bernie and Temi coming back, Walter? Do you know?
Back.
They're back. Okay, fine. So we'll let them know about Mario. You'll send out the various times, Mirza Hashem.
But Saturday night remains the same.
Yeah, for now, this Saturday night, because we only changed the clock
Following
Shabbos. Before the following week, we will change.
Okay.
Okay, Shikoch, everybody.
See you later.
See you later.